What's up, everybody? Welcome to our channel, Honest Hockey Takes. Today, we are going to do a buy-sell video.
Yeah, so what we're going to do for you guys today is we're going to go through all 32 teams, and we're going to go through if they're a team that should be buying, holding, or selling at this trade deadline. And we're going to start off with the Anaheim Ducks. Now, I think this one's pretty obvious. Anaheim for sure is going to be a seller. There's a lot of veteran players that could be getting some value for them, whether it's prospects or draft picks back. And I think that starts with a guy like Klingberg. I think he's going to be out the door, and we might even see John Gibson go.
Yeah, I mean, Killenberg, another one will be Adam Henry, who's a valuable veteran
good
centerman.
veteran, middle six
guy, a team like Boston can look at. Yeah, it's very simple. I think this is going to be a sell. They need draft picks. They need to build for the future. But moving on to the next team, we got the Arizona Coyotes. And this is also a sell, obviously, because it's the bottom of the standings team. They have a lot of players like Bustad. They also have rumored to be shopping Chikrin, who I don't think is going to get moved if you watch our last video. But yeah, this is the seller. They need draft pick. They need to take on some salary and get a lot of from teams that are cap strapped and just build for the future.
Yeah, I 100% have Arizona as a seller. I think everyone kind of knows this already. They've been a seller for years now. They're basically just stacking up prospects and picks at this point in their system. Guys like Logan Cooley and co. getting younger. And hearing lots on selling guys like Nick Ritchie would be a big one to kind of get out there for a team that needs some grit down there. And obviously, Jacob Chikrin's been on there for a while. I really hope he does get traded because, I mean, he's just wasting such a huge amount of talent by being on this team right now. All right, next up, I have the Boston Bruins. And for the Boston Bruins, I actually have them as a hold. And the reason I have them as a hold and not a buyer at this deadline is because I think when you got something as good as Boston has right now, historic pace right now, like second best season of all time. We've learned from the past, you don't want to go and add a bunch of new pieces to this. Obviously, the chemistry is working. Obviously, the team's winning. I would just hold on to what they have and not change a thing.
I actually kind of agree with Scott on this one. If they are a buyer, they're going to be a small buyer. Get someone kind of like in the bottom six that can hopefully score a few goals here and there, but that can help the bottom six. But other than that, I like the top six of this team. I like the defense score of this team, and obviously a very good goalie.
Very well rounded.
And the next team that we have is the Buffalo Sabres. And this one, I gotta say, is going to be a buy. I mean, this team is so good right now. They do need a goaltender. If they can, there's rumors that they're in on Demko. If they're in on Demko, man, that would be sick. They definitely need to upgrade that defense.
Yeah, no, I think they are a buyer right now, although I think they should hold personally. And the reason I think they should hold is because they're doing some really good things right now, but I don't think they're at that point to push themselves over the hump to get in the playoffs, just because I think the East right now in those wildcard spots is a little too competitive. I think if they do go out and get something, though, they should focus on probably getting another defenseman to get a deeper defense overall. This team can score goals. We've seen the offense is not the problem. They got to go out there and get like a 3-4 defenseman to fill in this lineup if they can. All right, next up, I have the Calgary Flames. And man, this is one of the harder ones to predict. I think the Flames are still going to be a buyer, though. It's really tough for this team because they're outside the playoffs currently, but they're so close. But I think they'll probably go and try to get someone who can fill in as a top six forward. Most likely a winger. I've heard talks on guys like Vladimir Tarasenko, although I don't really know exactly how they plan to make the money work on that with some of their new contracts they signed this year. But hey, if St. Louis is willing to retain some salary, that might be an option.
I think the Calgary Flames should be a hold, but historically, Brad Treliving has been every deadline. He always puts on the big show, and last year he added Toffoli there. So this year, I won't be surprised if he goes after a big fish. So yeah, but personally, I think this team should play it out this year and see how well they do. I just don't think the Calgary Flames are anywhere as strong as they were last year, but yeah. And the next team that we have is the Carolina Hurricanes, and this one is a very obvious buy. This is a contending team right now for the Stanley Cup. This is an extremely good team. They just lost Pacioretty to the injury, so they're probably going to want to find another winger to kind of fill his spot.
Yeah, I think they're going to be a buyer. It's not quite the same as Boston where I say hold because I think they're not quite that same type of team. But I do think they need to go out and add a middle six or a top six forward. Their defense is really strong. Their goaltending is pretty much elite all around. I mean, they ran 3 goalies and they keep winning. So, I mean, I think they're fine. But they definitely could go out there and use adding an extra winger specifically. Next up, the Chicago Blackhawks. And quite obviously, Chicago is going to be a seller. I think they could sell quite a bit actually come this deadline. They have so many assets that they can get rid of, whether it's Patrick Kane and Taves, who will draw a lot of return for these guys, most likely get them some good first round picks and some prospects that they can work with. And then they got guys like Max Domi, who's having pretty much a career year. He could be flipped for something to a team. A lot of teams would be interested right now after his strong start to the year. And guys like McCabe on defense, someone who needs like a 5'6" defenseman, they could get a really physical player.
Yeah, this team is going to be very busy in the deadline. They're going to be wanting to sell a lot of players, including Kane, Taves, right? But mainly, I think the guy that has a lot of value is actually McCabe, because a lot of teams are looking for that defense right now. Defensive demon on the left side.
That they don't have to pay too much for.
Exactly. So I feel like they're going to be busy in the deadline. And the next team that we have is the Colorado Avalanche, and this one is obviously going to be a bye. This team is also another Stanley Cup contending team as well, but what they really need on this team is a second line center, and I feel like they should go in on ROR, Ryan O'Reilly, because he played there before, and he knows that city well, and he has worked out really well in that team before, so they could really use a Ryan O'Reilly.
Yeah, this team's definitely going to be a buyer. No contest. They're such a competitive team. They won the Cup last year. They kind of have lacked some center depth this year. Rodriguez filled in pretty nicely, but it's not really a true second line center. A guy like Ryan O'Reilly would add a lot to this team. And now that we've seen Bo Horvat off the market, that does pretty much leave Ryan O'Reilly as one of the few centers, him or Jonathan Taves, that they could go after and fill that one niche that they're missing on this team. Next up, I have the Columbus Blue Jackets, and once again, some of these are pretty obvious. Columbus is definitely going to be a seller. This is a team that's bottom 2 right now in the league. It fluctuates game in and out, but they're just terrible, and they got to get rid of some veterans here because they're not going to be winning anytime soon. Look for Gavrikov to be on the move for sure. A lot of teams are going to be interested in his service because he's a really talented two-way defenseman. He has a little bit of offense, but he's really known for his hard hitting and shot blocking. That guy is going to be commanding a pretty good price, I think. I mean, I hear they're looking for like a first or a second rounder. So also they have options in some of their veteran forwards they could look to move, like Boone Jenner, although it's not as likely as a guy like Gavrikov, but definitely expect this team to be making some sells.
Yeah, this team sucks so bad. But hey, there you have Gavrikov, who is a big asset that he can trade in the market. I know my Oilers are very interested in this player. He's a solid left side defenseman who can block, who can hit. Very, very good defenseman. So we'll see what the Columbus Blue Jackets get for him. But move on to the next team. We got the Dallas Stars. And Dallas Stars, we've talked about this off air, and this team needs a second line winger on this team. And
Yes.
There's rumors that they're in on Tyler Bertuzzi. If Tyler Bertuzzi does manage to go on this team is going to be very, very solid down the road.
Yeah, no, I think their defense as it is actually pretty solid. They're pretty deep on defense with Lindell, Heiskanen, those guys. But they also have an absolutely elite goaltender. Really, all they're missing right now on this team is some secondary scoring. If they could get a guy like Tyler Bertuzzi or even some other winger that could play in the top 6, I think they'd really have evened out their team. And I mean, we've already seen they're one of the best teams, if not the best team in the West right now. So that would really complete what they need to get for at the deadline. Probably going to have to move a first or a second round pick, though. And speaking of Tyler Bertuzzi, next team we got here is the Detroit Red Wings. And unfortunately, probably for like the 5th, 6th year in a row, these guys are most likely going to be sellers. They got some real pieces they can move to get some assets, though. I mean, they got Tyler Bertuzzi, which is going to command quite the price tag back in return. And they also got guys like Dominic Kubalik, who had a really, really good start to the year that they could sell. This guy doesn't have a very high contract and would draw a lot from people who want some middle 6 scoring. So a lot of contenders could be out to get these guys.
Yeah, this is definitely a sell. Kubalik would be a nice addition for a team that really need a sniper on their team. He had a very hot start but really cooled off. So yeah, Tyler Bertuzzi, another one we just mentioned, a very good one. Other than that, yeah, sell. The next team that we have is the Edmonton Oilers. And the Edmonton Oilers, I'm very familiar with this team. They're going to be a buy. And what they really need right now is a defensive defenseman on the left side, preferably Gavrikov. That would be really nice. I really want that to happen. Another thing that we really need on this team is the right winger position. We really need a right winger because right now we switch Hyman to the right side, who's looking really good right now. But at the same time, we need some natural right wingers on the team that can actually shoot some goals. Not Puljujarvi and not Yamamoto.
Yeah, I have Edmonton as well as a buyer. I don't think they're going to go crazy, though. I think this is going to be a small buyer team. I think they're trying to get small pieces like a 4 or 5 defenseman and maybe like a third line winger kind of thing. I don't think they're going to go out and do any crazy blockbusters. Next, I have the Florida Panthers. And man, this team for me is a hold. And the reason they're a hold is they're outside the playoffs by a little bit, but they can't really go all in. They've already given up so many of their assets that they have, like their draft picks, in the last big trade that they made, and they just can't really do a lot. Their wiggle room is so thin. They don't have a lot of cap space, they don't have a lot of assets, and they've kind of royally screwed themselves over the last year and a half, especially with that Sherratt trade, giving up their first rounder. This is a team that kind of just has to hope that their season can turn around in the last 30 games and they can push for a wild card spot.
Yeah, this GM did a horrible job in the offseason. And even last season. I mean, they went all in last season,
and it did not
and
work.
they didn't pan out at all. So yeah, this is going to be a hold. See how hopefully they can turn it around this season. I just don't feel like they're going to catch any of the teams ahead. But hey.
Yeah, they really can't sell, because if they sell, they risk giving their team a worse record and making that first rounder they traded look really juicy for Montreal.
And the next team that we have on the list is the LA Kings, and the LA Kings are going to be a buy. I could see them being like a small buy because they made that huge splash in the offseason to get Kevin Fiala, which was a big addition for them.
Yeah.
But they do need some defensive depth. I feel like they should definitely go in on the McCabe. McCabe would be a very nice addition to this team.
Yeah, I also have them trying to get defensive depth. I think right now they're running with some pretty hot goaltending, and they got the veteran experience in Jonathan Quick. Plus, they also really do have a really deep offense. I mean, we went over this in past shows. I mean, they have that really good second line now with Arvidsson and Deneau, who have really good chemistry. Obviously, Fiala, Kopitar, Kempe, those guys can score. So really all they need to go out and get is a solid defenseman. I'd be interested to see how far they're willing to go with their prospects to try to get a guy like Jacob Chikrin, because I could also see this fit on LA, and that would be a big boost for that team. Next up, I have the Minnesota Wild. And for Minnesota, I have them as a hold/sell. The reason I say hold/sell is because I think for the most part, they're going to keep this roster the same. They don't have a lot of cap flexibility to go and be a buyer, even though they are a playoff team currently. But there have been lots of talks of them selling Matt Dumba. They don't want to re-sign him essentially, and he has to pretty much go by the deadline. So I could see them getting rid of him, getting some assets back, and then waiting to load up for next year to go on a real run.
Yeah, right now this is the year where I don't expect much from Minnesota, to be honest, because of the whole Ryan Suter and the Rasak Paire's contract problem
Really
there.
cash-strapped.
Really cash-strapped right now. So yeah, it would be a good time to actually sell parts of some of their assets right now, especially Matt Dumba would be a good sell, because I actually personally don't think he's that good.
But a lot of people will still try to get him.
Yeah.
Trust me, defensemen like him are still very valuable.
And the next team that we have is the Montreal Canadiens, and this team is definitely going to be a sell. Honestly, outside of Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki, sell anything. Like this team, like at this point, just sell anything.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure like almost everyone on this team is up for grabs that's like over the age of 22. I don't think they're keeping a lot of this core other than, like as Hohen said, the young kids. But they're going to have some pieces they can sell off. Most likely guys like Hoffman will be traded because, I mean, this guy seems to get traded almost every single deadline. So, I mean, he's on a new team every year. It's kind of crazy. But they got to get some pieces back. They're clearly tanking for Bedard here. They've made it very obvious with some of their moves, whether it be putting people on the IR or just keeping them out and giving younger kids from the AHL opportunity. They're going to be a seller. Next up, I have the Nashville Predators, and my gosh, this is one of the hardest ones to predict. Personally, I think they should just sell because I don't think they have any chance of getting in the playoffs with all this competition in the West for the wild card. But you never know. With David Poile, this team loves to try to make moves and always thinks they're a contender, so they could still be a buyer yet. But realistically, I think this team should just call it and start a rebuild. I think they should be selling off guys like Johansson if they can, Granlund, and start looking towards the future and getting younger.
Yeah, I can't imagine how frustrating it would be to be a Nashville Predator fan because
mediocrity, always in a flat
David
mediocrity.
Poile never wants to rebuild this team. He just wants to like retool it and add patches to it. This team every year, and
it's always like a wild card team.
Yeah, it's always a wild card team. They have a world class goalie. I get it, but the thing is, your team's just not good enough. It's not gonna make the playoffs with the type of You're not being Colorado, you're not being Edmonton, you're not being all these teams ahead of you guys. Just not happening.
No, I don't think anything they could go buy at the deadline was going to put them over the top ahead of these teams.
Yeah. And the next team that we have is the New Jersey Devils. And to me personally, this is obviously a big buy because this is one of the best teams in the league. And this team is in big rumors for one of the big scoring wingers in Timo Myers or Brock Besser. And it would be crazy if they can land one of those players.
Yeah, both of those players would be great fits. Obviously, I think they're a buy. It's funny because if at the beginning of the season you asked me this, I'd say they're an automatic sell.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy how that changed really quick. But this team is going to definitely put an effort into getting one of those. My guess is still Timo Meyer. I'm sticking with that guess. I'm sure he's going to end up as a Devil. Next up, the New York Islanders. Now, wow, this team's already been quite the buyer. They went out and made a splash I don't think anyone expected and got Bo Horvat, giving up a lot of their youth to do it, which makes me tend to think that this team, come deadline, is still a buyer. Even though they're not in the playoffs quite yet, they're pretty close points-wise, and I think this has really signaled they want to go all in and they want to be a playoff team again because, I mean, they were just in the Final Four 2 of the last 4 years. They're going to try to get back. And I think it starts with adding a top 6 winger. That is the biggest need for a team that has a really solid defensive core and a world-class goalie.
Yeah, honestly, before the Bo Horvat trade, I would have probably said maybe sell or hold, but now it has changed completely. That it just shows with the Bo Horvat trade, just shows that this is going
committed.
on.
Lou Lamoriello is not effing around.
Yeah, so the problem is this team gave up too many assets for that Bo Horvat trade. So I don't know how. I feel like this is going to be a small buy. I feel like they're going to go out and get a player like Barabanov, someone that's not a big player, but someone that can help.
But could add some offensive pop, maybe be a 15, 20 goal scorer.
And the next team that we have is the New York Rangers, and that would be a buyer. They're rumored to be on Patrick Kane, and I feel like they do need Patrick Kane on this team. It will cement them to be a cup contender.
Yeah, I think that New York Rangers, when all's said and done, will be one of the biggest buyers right now at this trade deadline. There's just too much smoke around this team right now making moves, whether it's Patrick Kane, Timo Meier, Besser. They want a winger, and they're being quite obvious about it, and they're willing to part with one of their young kids. I don't know whether it's Lafreniere or it's Kakko or just Kravtsov and more picks, but one of these kids is going to be gone come deadline, and they're going to add someone who can make an impact to this team that was already a Final Four team last year. Next up, the Ottawa Senators. Man, this team has been a bit of a disappointment this year. I had way higher hopes, and I thought they'd be a buyer at this time. But clearly they're out of the playoffs. They're going to be a bottom 8 team this year. But you know what? I actually have them as a hold, not a sell. I think their core that they have offensively is really strong with the guys like Batherson, Stützle, Tkachuk, and those crew. I think they have a really solid future, and they're all around the same age. I don't think they want to mess with that, and I don't think they have really the cap issues to worry about right now. And right now, their defense is all really young as well. I don't think they should change anything. I think they should just learn, take the bumps that this season has given them, and move on to next year with a more complete game.
Yeah, for me personally, all they need to do for this year, they're not going to make the playoffs. So they either hold, I feel like just hold, and fire the coach. That's it.
The coach one is a big one.
And the next team that we have on the list is the Philadelphia Flyers. And this one is going to be a sell. And to me, anyone on this team is a sell other than Travis Konechny and Sean Couturier. These are the only two that I would hold on the team. And even Provorov, I would personally hold on to him. But everyone else on this team is tradable to me.
Yeah, I think this is guaranteed to be a seller. The question is, how much are they going to sell? Hearing a lot of buzz about selling JVR, getting him out there. That's a good cap savings for this team and probably grabs them a couple good assets, whether it's a solid prospect or a first-round pick. Lots of talk on Provorov. I don't think they should get rid of him because I do still think he's the best overall defenseman on that team, but there has been quite the buzz about trading him right now. So between JVR, Provorov, and then even a guy like Kevin Hayes, technically, if he was really hot, they could try to trade him, but they would have to probably retain some salary. Next up, I have the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, this team has not really met full expectations this year, but nevertheless, I think they're going to be a buyer. And the reason I think they're going to be a buyer is because I'm looking at the last 12 years, and every single year they've been a buyer. They don't have any draft picks left, it seems. It feels like every year they just recycle first and give them away and just say, nope, we're going for it. We're going for a cup. Because whenever you have Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin on your team, you're a contender. And that's basically been the thought process of this GM for years. They're going to go out and they're going to go try to add something. In this case, I think they need to add defensemen.
Yeah, this is going to be a buy. I mean, you got Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin on the team still, and Chris Letang. You want to make these guys feel happy and winning hockey games, and they're going to go out and buy something. I don't know what they're going to buy, but they need to buy something.
I think most likely a 3-4 defenseman is what they're in the market for. Someone who's pretty good in their own zone because they've kind of struggled with that a bit this year. We know they have the offense in their top 6. I don't think that's a worry. I don't think after adding Raquel last year's deadline, they need to add more.
Yeah. And the next team that we have is the San Jose Sharks, and this one is the definite sell. And honestly,
could be the biggest seller.
The whole team is a sell. Not a single player, in my mind, that is currently on the roster right now is worth holding on to.
I think they're going to keep Hurdle after that new contract. It's just signed.
But
it's fresh.
Yeah, maybe just him. But obviously they want to build for a future of William Eklund and all those guys coming up.
Yeah.
But everyone else on the team is a sell.
Yeah. This is going to be the number one seller, I think, of the next month that we have right now going into this trade deadline. This team's probably looking to get rid of guys like Barabanov, Logan Couture, Timo Meier, Carlson. These guys all could be on the market, and it's going to be insane to see how many draft picks this team has come next year. Next up, the St. Louis Blues. Now, this is such a weird team. We really thought this team would be high up in a playoff spot, locked in, but right now, they're not. And I actually don't think they're making the playoffs this year. So I actually have this team as a sell. It's sounding like, even though they're injured right now, Tarasenko and O'Reilly are going to be out of town. I know a lot of teams have shown interest in O'Reilly, one because of his two-way game, two because of his leadership and ability to score. This guy is going to draw quite the price, and it might really help this core that's young with guys like Thomas and Kyrou that they really need to build around.
Yeah, this is going to be a sell. Exactly the two players Scott just said. They need to get rid of these veteran players on the team. They want to build around Kyrou and Robert Thomas.
Yeah, they're freshly signed players.
Yeah, so it's definitely a sell. The next team that we have on the list is the Tampa Bay Lightning, and this one is definitely a hold. If they do buy, it'll be a small buy like they did last year to get Hagel and these underrated players at the time, and they can play up the lineup. Yeah, that's probably the maximum I see them do. Something small if they do buy someone, but that's about it.
This team's been really good with adding in the past couple of years, especially to their third and fourth lines. I wouldn't be surprised if they did it again.
Nick Paul?
Whether it's Nick Paul, they added Hagel, they added guys like Coleman back in the day. Like, this is a really solid team when it comes to making moves. I do think they should hold, though. They have such a good chemistry. They've been to the Stanley Cup final 3 years in a row. I don't think you mess with that. I think you keep it. If anything, you go add a depth defenseman, because the 5-6 defense spot is kind of a little weak, and you don't really want to have to rely on having Foot back there as like one of your defensemen.
Yeah, don't like Hal Foot. No.
So maybe just a small add-on defense. Next up, the Toronto Maple Leafs, one of everyone's favorite teams to watch during the trade deadline. I don't know if they're going to be making a big move, but I do know they're going to be a buyer. This is a team that is really going to look to try to get another defenseman to replace Jake Muzzin. They don't really have the deepest defensive core in the league, and I think everyone's known it, mainly because they spent so much on that offense. I could also see them trying to go out and get like a middle six winger type player that can play on the third line. Their top two lines are pretty stacked. I don't think they have to worry about offense there.
I feel like this is definitely going to be a buyer. If they do buy, though, I feel like, again, what Scott said, they do need to add some depth to that defense core. But mainly, I think they need some bottom six players, because we know that the top six is crazy good. But the thing is, when the playoff comes, teams are going to be they're going to put the best defense and the best systems around those players, right?
Oh, they need someone on the third line to score them a key goal that could win like a game. Yeah,
so absolutely. That's what they need. And the next team that we have on the list is the Vancouver Canucks, and this one's definitely going to be a sell. Very obvious. They traded away Bo Horvat already, their biggest trade chip. Right now, they're rumored to be trading Tyler Myers and Brock Besser. Brock Besser can hopefully get them some decent return, but if anyone trades for Tyler Myers, I'm like, man, you guys are crazy. That guy sucks.
Yeah, I think both these guys could get some good returns for this team, whether it's through multiple draft picks or just a really high draft pick or even some good prospect. Tyler Myers, either one of these two players, honestly, they're going to come with cap retention. This team is going to have to eat like some cap for 2 to 3 years to get rid of these guys. And I know that the GMs come out and say they're retooling, but I end up thinking this is going to be more of a full rebuild by the end of it. Next up, the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, man, Vegas came off to a hot start this year. They've kind of started to falter a little bit with some key injuries to players. I do think they're still going to be a buyer, though. This team is going to make the playoffs this year. Even if they fall back a little bit, they're going to be there. And we've seen in the playoffs, they can go on a run. And I think they really need to add a middle six forward, preferably a winger, because their centers aren't that bad right now, especially with adding Jack Eichel in last year. It's going to be a team that's definitely going to try to go and get someone who's cheap. It's not going to cost them too much, maybe like a second, third round pick. They're not going to spend a lot.
Actually, yeah, I actually agree with this. They're a buyer, but it's like a small buyer for like a middle six player, because they actually, when Mark Stone went down, they couldn't win games. So they need someone that can actually come in, that can hopefully, like a Rodriguez, right?
Yeah, that was a good ad for Colorado.
Right, where it can come in and play on the third line, but can play on the first or second line as well. They need something like that, because right now it's proven that Mark Stone's very injury prone now. So it's a given. So eventually he'll get injured again, and when he gets injured, what will you guys do? You guys are gonna lose games, or I don't know.
Yeah, no, and their defense is pretty solid. I don't think they need to change anything there.
The next team that we have is the Seattle Kraken, and this team is definitely going to be a buy. They're like will probably win the Pacific Division, which is absolutely insane. Who would have thought, right?
Wild.
What I really think they need is another defensive defenseman, because they got a lot of like kind of like two-way defensemen, offensive defensemen on their team. They could use more defensive defensemen on the team, and also they could use like a better goalie. Honestly, as good as Martin Jones has been, he hasn't, like his save percentage is not good. He's not going to hold in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, this team is definitely going to buy. They're going to be in the playoffs, as much as we didn't expect it to happen at any point this year. Until now, we're finally realizing it's going to happen.
Yeah.
They might even finish first, like Hohen said. Who knows at this rate? I mean, they're a pretty hot team. I don't know really what they can add. The good news for them is they do have a ton of cap space. That is not going to be the issue. This team can pretty much do anything as long as they have the draft capital to give up and willing to give up to go get a player. I don't know what they really will get, because some of the biggest names out there kind of feel accounted for right now. I don't think they're going to be able to be in the Taro sweepstakes, because honestly, if they wanted Tarasenko, they could have got him in the expansion draft.
I was about to say that.
So it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. I don't really think they're going to go get Meyer or Besser either.
No.
So I think they're going to go and actually do a smaller ad. I think they're going to add another defenseman to this roster and potentially maybe like a bottom six forward, but I don't think they're going to mess with it too much. I think they're in it for the long haul and the long term. Now for the Washington Capitals. Washington does not have a lot of flexibility right now. Thankfully for them, their team's getting healthier. I think they're going to end up just being a hold at deadline day. I can't see them going out and making any big splashes. If they do make anything, it's going to be the tiniest of microscopic ads, but they're not going to sell anything either. So I fully expect this team to just get healthier and hold the line.
Exactly. I'm on Scott on this one. I don't know what they have to sell anyways. It's like a lot of the guy, maybe Dylan Strome, they can get something of, but right now you want to make Ovechkin happy.
And they're in the playoffs.
Right? And they're in the playoffs. So they're a competitive team right now, and with Ovechkin, gotta make him happy. So
yeah, the GM's already said that this team is not tanking. There, as long as
Yeah.
Ovechkin's there, they're playing to win.
And the final team that we have is the Winnipeg Jets, and this one's gonna be a buy, but it'll be to me a small buy. It'll be this team's already really really good. They have an elite goalie. Josh Morrissey had a crazy revolutionary season. But yeah, I feel like they could add some offensive punch in the bottom six there, and I feel like they can also add a solid bottom pairing defenseman.
Yeah, this team's not going to do anything drastic. I mean, they've been quite successful. I mean, they're top 2 in the West right now as of recording. Like, it's kind of crazy. What a bounce back season for so many of their players. Like, Hellebuck, just awesome. And guys like Kyle Connor and Scheifele, they can't stop scoring goals. I think right now they're just going to do some little knick-knack changes. Like, they're going to get like some number 5, number 4 defenseman type thing. Someone who can play like 17, 18 minutes a night if they need to kind of keep this depth there. So guys like Pionk and Morrissey don't have to play half the game. And then probably try to get some like hard checking forward to play on the fourth line. And that's really all they need to change at this point, I think. But I hope you guys are as excited as we are for this next upcoming month. This is when the season starts to get spicy. Trade deadline time. We want to see these moves. We want to see the excitement. Looking forward to this every time we wake up and check on our phones and see trades. So until next time, we'll talk to you guys later. Take care.
We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.